This one's gonna be a good one. Lots of helpful information. If you stick around through the whole thing, you're the real MVP.
Hey there, I'm Jenna Ryan from the internhustle.com, and this is Initiative Muscle Monday, helping you to start each week with an intentional step toward a successful future. Let's do this.
Do you have an internship interview coming up? Have you practiced answering some of the most common interview questions? If not, let's change that. Hit the like button below if you're ready to learn 20 common interview questions and how you can answer them. And don't forget to subscribe while you're at it. Have you subscribed to this channel yet? If you're getting value out of these videos, then help a sister out and hit that red button below. And make sure that you watch until the end of this video because I'm sharing a pro tip for how you can look up some of the exact questions that each company asks during the interview process. Now, before we dive into the 20 internship interview questions and answers, let's just start with criteria of a good interview answer. What makes an interview answer a quality one? A good interview answer is confident. Now, I said confident, not arrogant. There is a difference. A confident answer reflects that you're prepared. It means that you know what you're talking about, which you should because the questions are mostly about you and you've done your research on the company, right? And you also exude confidence by giving thoughtful answers and not fumbling your way through coming up with what to say next. Know what you're gonna say and close in a confident way as well. Don't trail off and end with, so yeah, I guess that explains it. Do you realize how unprofessional and lacking confidence that sounds? And you don't want to rush your answers either. Talking super fast in an interview makes you come off as nervous and not confident. And remember, I said confidence, not arrogance. Learn how to talk about your accomplishments without sounding like you're a know-it-all. You don't know it all. Believe me, none of us do. And nothing used to turn me off more in an interview than someone who thought that they were a shoo-in for the position that they were interviewing for. So, how do you walk into your interview with confidence? Well, a good interview answer is also prepared. Not memorized, because you don't want to come off like a robot, but for the same reason that you're likely here watching this video today, you want to have a good sense of what you're going to say and how you're going to answer each question that is thrown your way in an interview. Do you think that a New York Times best-selling author would go on the Today Show without first preparing some thoughtful answers about what they might be asked about their book? No, they have professional media training before they hit the media circuit because they and their publishers know that one bad answer can kill an interview. And the same goes for you with your internship interview. You're not going to be getting professional media training, but you can definitely prepare by practicing on your own. If you want to dive even deeper into how to prepare, I have another video coming out in a couple weeks after this one that talks all about how to prepare for an interview. I will link it up here once it's live, but you should also make sure that you're subscribed by hitting that red button below and the little bell next to it so that you get notifications as soon as my videos are released. And before we move on to the next point in what makes a good interview answer, remember that being prepared with your answer also means that you've done your research on the company. You don't want to wind up saying something that's going to make you want to put your foot in your mouth or looking clueless because you should know an obvious fact about the company, but you don't. Be smart. Do your research and practice so that you are prepared. A good interview answer is also specific. So use examples as much as you can to talk about what you accomplished, not just what your responsibilities were in your past experience. And the best thing that you can do is use stories to help illustrate your answers because stories help to create a narrative. They engage people and they give something for them to remember you by. And this is important when you think about how many resumes they've already received and how many other interviews they're probably conducting just to fill this internship that you want. So let's go back to that interview with the Today Show for an example. When you're watching that, you're more interested in what someone has to say when they're telling a story versus just stating facts. And in this same sense, interviewers are going to remember you for the stories that you tell. And stories also help to settle your nerves in an interview because the more that you're yourself, the more natural this interview experience is going to feel overall. One important caveat though to being specific with your interview answer is to be concise at the same time. So do not ramble on and on and on. If you can tell that you've lost them or they're starting to look at their watch, that's a sign to wrap it up. Give them the opportunity to ask follow-on questions if they have them. But be concise with every answer that you give. Get to the point and move on. And finally, this one should go without saying, but a good interview answer is honest. Don't get caught inflating or fabricating your experience in an attempt to get the internship. Companies are going to check your references and you're gonna get caught in your lie. Remember, they don't expect you to have all the experience in the world as an intern. They know that you're here to learn. Interviews are more for feeling out personality attitude, work ethic, all of the factors that make you someone that they want to work with or not? Bottom line, be honest with your answers. All right, what you're here for. Let's dive into some common internship interview questions. And for each question, I'm going to explain the question and give you a high-level idea of how to craft your answer. And I'm not going to get super detailed in this video because it would probably end up being over an hour long if I did. But for now, let's give you a high-level kicking off point that you need in order to start practicing your interview questions. Don't forget, watch until the end of this video because I'm going to show you how you can look up some of the exact questions that each company asks during their interview process. Okay, on to the questions. Let's start with the get to know you questions. Tell me about yourself. Or said another way, walk me through your resume. Now, this isn't exactly a question, but just about every interview starts this way, and there's always a question behind this statement. It just isn't verbally spoken to you, but it's there. And it's usually along the lines of, how do you fit with our company or this role, etc. And there's no excuse for not knowing what you're going to say here because you can almost guarantee you're going to be asked some form of this question. So a good template to follow when crafting this answer is to make a narrative out of your resume. So highlight a couple top relevant accomplishments and then focus it back on the company and why you're a good fit for them. For example, when I was interviewing for my first strength and conditioning internships in college, I would answer this question something like, I am currently a student at Ohio State majoring in exercise science, and I grew up a part of collegiate athletics because my father was the head wrestling coach at a Big Ten university. So I took up an interest early on in sports performance, and exercise science was just an obvious choice for my studies in college. And when I'm home from school on breaks, I currently work as a fitness floor instructor at a prominent health club in the Chicago suburbs. And since starting my position there as a sophomore in high school, I've been learning a lot from the senior staff on how to improve my own weight room techniques and build a rapport with members when coaching them. And my goal is to train athletes at the professional level, and I know that in order to get to that point, I need to gain some more hands-on experience and advance my skill set. I know I could learn a great deal from you and your staff, which is why I'm excited to be talking to you today. And I'm really interested in becoming an intern for you this coming summer. That's it. That's how I would do it. And my response was under a minute in this case. I didn't walk them through every detail on my resume, and I for sure didn't give them my entire life story. It was concise, and it was a summary that gave them context for why I'm in the room interviewing for this position. And because this was earlier on in my professional journey, and I didn't have a ton of relevant experience to walk them through, it's relatively short. And that's okay. When crafting your own answer, focus on a brief introduction of who you are, touch on a relevant piece of experience or an accomplishment, and then bring it back to why this company and your desire to work with them. For the second question in the Get to Know You section, what do you consider to be your strengths? Your goal here is to answer with strengths that show that you're a good fit for this particular role. And if you did your research, you should know what this company is looking for. So don't list out every strength. Focus on a couple key strengths. And remember, you don't have to have work experience in order to have strengths. If you're stuck on what some of your strengths are, then go ahead and ask some friends and family members. Because we're often blind to things about ourselves that are super obvious to others. You have superpowers that people admire about you. We all do. And once you know what they are, think about how you can make them relevant to the company and the role. Why should they pick you over someone else? Don't be cliche with your answer to this question. Give them answers that are hard to say no to. Another internship interview question that you may be asked, which is the opposite of what we just covered, is what is a weakness of yours? Just like tell me about yourself, this is a pretty popular interview question. Again, stay away from the cliche answers. Being a perfectionist doesn't cut it. You want to be honest with your answer, but you also want to pick a weakness that doesn't directly tie to the role that you're applying for. So don't say that you struggle with Excel if you're applying for a finance role. That's like shooting yourself in the foot. Your job here is to name a weakness and give them a little context to show what you've learned from it and what you're working to improve. So something like, I tend to have a hard time asking for help. I personally learn by doing, and sometimes that means I bite off more than I can chew in the process. For example, when working on a recent group project for a statistics class, I offered to create all of the charts and graphs for the presentation for my group. And once I actually got into it, I realized it's a lot more work than I thought. But I was determined to figure it out on my own because, again, I like to learn by doing. But I since realized, by way of other group projects that I've worked on, that I could have learned more by partnering up with some of the other people in my group and brainstorming solutions together. Not only would we have completed this project faster, but I would have gained some new perspective and been a lot less stressed by asking for some help up front. That's a great way for you to describe a weakness in an interview. Another question that you may be asked in an internship interview is, what do you like to do in your spare time? Now, this isn't a trick question. If they ask this question, they're just trying to get to know you a little bit better. Remember, they're trying to see if you're a good fit for the company and for their team. So be yourself and just try to keep your answer appropriate. Don't say that you like to hit up Thirsty Thursday every week after kickball with your friends. Rather, you should talk about how you like to meet new people on campus through a rec kickball league and that you're hoping to try out some other activities next semester as well. All right, another question. How do you stay organized? This one shouldn't be hard. You're a student who has to manage your time well in order to stay on top of your courses and your extracurriculars and maybe even a part-time job and of course your social life. So give them a specific example of how you do this. Do you use Google Calendar or do you have a daily to-do list that keeps you straight? Describe how you utilize different tools to stay on top of all the things. And by doing this, you're going to show them that you're able to handle multiple tasks and project deadlines in an internship environment with them. Next question, how do you react to pressure or stressful situations? The goal here is to show that you're able to handle stress in a mature way. They want to know that you can work under the pressure of a deadline or maybe the stress caused by a difficult colleague without unraveling on them. They need to know an example of how you handled a curveball in the past, maybe a group project in school that was really stressful and how you worked with that. So pull from examples with school, volunteer work, or a part-time job and show them how you handled yourself positively and how you didn't go running away from the situation, screaming and flailing. The 7th internship interview question that I want you to prepare for. How would you describe your learning or work style? So are you better working with a team or independently? What they're really looking for here is how well do you work with others? And can you be productive with little or no direction? Are you a self-starter? Both are important to any workplace setting. And as an intern, you could end up with one company that has a very formal internship program where you're one of many interns and you need to shine as a good team player. Or you could end up at a company that doesn't have a lot of structure. There's not an established internship program and you're not even clear who your manager is. And in that case, you have to be proactive and take initiative to create your own projects and be successful. Now, it's okay to favor one work style over the other. Everyone does. You either work better as part of a team or maybe you're a better independent contributor. But follow up your answer with positive examples of how you've worked well in both scenarios. Show them that you can do well in both. The next question that they may ask you is, what are your career goals? Or where do you hope to be in 5 years? Now, obviously it's hard to predict the future, but this is a great opportunity for you to reiterate what drew you to this company in the first place. So talk about your career path that you're interested in, or maybe it's even less specific than that. Maybe for you, it's an industry that you're interested in, and part of what you hope to learn in your internship experience is more about this industry and what specific industry segments or roles you're best suited for. The important thing though with answering this question is to show that you're taking your future seriously and let them know that an internship with their company would be a really exciting step in the right direction for you. So those first 8 questions are some of the most common get to know you interview questions that someone might ask you at your internship interview. And one important note that I want you to understand going into your interview, you might not know this if you haven't had many interviews before. Some questions are actually illegal for an employer to ask you. These are questions related to your gender, age, race, religion, family. These are all off limits. And most people are trained in this and they know that these questions are off limits. But for some reason, if you're asked one of these questions in a category like this, you're not required to answer and you can politely decline. Just keep that in mind. Okay, we're gonna move on to experience questions. And this is an area that a lot of students stress about because they feel that they don't have any experience to even talk about yet. Remember, there are many different ways that you can highlight experience. So let's dive into some examples of interview questions and answers that surround experience so that you can see what I mean. First up, give me an example of an accomplishment that you're most proud of and why. So this can be anything. It does not have to be work-related. Obviously, if you have an accomplishment that's relevant to the company or position you're interviewing for, you should use that. But if you don't, there are other things that you can say. For example, do you have a story to tell about how you got accepted into your school? Or perhaps it was a competitive major at your school. That's an accomplishment. Or maybe it's an impressive amount of money that you raised for a volunteer effort. That's another kind of accomplishment. No matter what type, think about how you can use it to tell a story. Remember, stories help them remember you. So instead of saying, I'm proud of raising $5,000 for XYZ charity, you can tell them a story about how you had to get creative in order to raise these funds on a tight timeline, and then give them some examples of how you were able to do this. And don't forget to answer the and why part of this question. Give me an example of an accomplishment you were most proud of and why. Wrap up your answer by highlighting why this accomplishment is important to you. The next question that they may ask you related to experience is, what is a challenge that you've encountered or a criticism that you've received, and what did you do to overcome it? I recommend keeping this answer professional and not personal. No one needs to know about your personal issues here. That could lose the interview for you altogether. Instead, come up with an example from a part-time job or a class assignment, and then highlight how you were able to problem solve to get through that challenge. Or demonstrate how you received feedback well and worked to improve the next time. The biggest piece of this question that the interviewer is trying to uncover is, how did you overcome it? So what actions did you take to improve? Focus on providing them with that in your answer. Next up, what relevant experience do you have, or why should we pick you? This is super important. Don't make it all about you, because it's not. Remember, they are looking for someone who can help them. Turn it back to the company and what you know about their needs. And this is from the job description and the research that you've done on them. Tie your experience back to how you can help solve their needs. Put the company and their needs first and make it less about you. And again, don't stress if you're a student and you don't have that much work experience yet. We talked about this. It's okay. Just think about choosing specific examples from your academic experience, a project you worked on, or a professor that you sit down with on a weekly basis for mentorship. Or maybe you're part of collegiate athletics and that's taught you how to work as a member of a team. Just remember to focus on them and how you can be what they need. Most people will fail to do this. They're gonna make it about me, me, me. So if you can focus on them, you're going to be one step ahead of everybody else. Another thing that you might be presented with in an internship interview is, tell me about a time that you showed initiative or leadership. And I think this one's pretty straightforward. Just take the time to sit down and write out examples that come to mind of times where you've shown initiative or leadership. And then focus on crafting a story about your best example that will be most relevant to the company that you're interviewing with. Really, people want to see here that you're assertive and able to take action. So show them that you've been able to do this in the past. All right, we are through 12 of the questions. And I don't know about you, but I could use a little water break. Okay, so next up are the ever so important questions about, did you do your research? So let's start with, why are you interested in interning for our company? And you can pull from your tell me about yourself answer here a little bit for this question. So what experience are you hoping to gain? And why do you think that this company is a great way for you to gain this experience? Specifically, based on the research that you've done for this company, what is it about them that you're most excited about? Are you seeing some themes here in these questions and answers? So what is it about the company that really inspires you? Or maybe mention a company value that really resonates with you. But don't just give them a generic answer that could be about any company, because they want to know that you care about them and you want to work for them. They want to be the hot chick. And the next question is, what specific skills or experience do you hope to get out of an internship with our company? So similar to the last answer, you want to know your why, but you also want to be able to talk about specific experience that you can get from interning with this company. So this is where you want to use your research on the company and be able to highlight this. And let's say maybe you're a communications major and you would love to learn how to write a good press release. Something that you could say that highlights what you think you could learn from this company is, I'm so impressed by the recent press that your company has received from major media outlets surrounding your new product launch. And I would love to learn from both your product and marketing team as how they collaborate on pitching these ideas and really optimizing a press release. Your company seems to be really good at this, and I would love to learn from you. Another question that they may ask you during an internship interview is, what is our company's mission? Or name our company values, or who's our CEO? These are not trick questions. They just want to see if you're paying attention and really how much do you care? And this just comes down to doing your research and knowing your shit. So do your research and know the answers to these questions. It's as simple as that. And then there is my personal favorite question to ask people during an interview. The question is, do you have any questions for me? And this is my favorite to ask because it really always showed me how much someone prepared and ultimately how much they care. Now, I have an entire video on sample questions that you should be asking an employer during an internship interview. It's one of my most popular videos, and I encourage you to check it out after this one. It will be linked in the description below. But the bottom line is to always have questions to ask them. For the next category of questions that you should be prepared to answer during an internship interview, we are going to talk about logistics questions. And these are questions like, if you're chosen as an intern for our company, when are you able to start, and until what day are you able to stay on board with us? So know your dates and know your availability. It's okay to have this written down in your notes and reference those notes during the actual interview, because this shows them that you're prepared. But the important thing is that you are prepared and that you do know the answers to these questions. And also, if you don't currently live in the same city or state or even country as this company, then make sure that you've nailed down your plans for when and how you will be able to relocate and be able to speak to this as well. You want to let them know that you will be ready to take this position if it's offered to you, and you don't want to leave that as an open question in their mind. And another logistics question that they just might straight up ask you is, are you applying to other internships? And if so, what are they? Remember, be honest. It does not reflect poorly on you if you're applying to other internships. People know that this is a numbers game. So answer them honestly, but make sure you're always bringing it back to why you want to work for them. You could answer this by saying something like, yes, I have applied to about 10 internships, and they're all related to marketing and specifically social media, because it's important to me that I have an internship lined up for this summer that really allows me to gain some hands-on experience with a company. But as I mentioned earlier, I really want to intern with your company because XYZ. And I feel that I would make a great contribution to your team because blah, blah, blah. Just remember to bring it back to them and you'll be good to go when you're answering this question. And then finally, random questions. And this is the last thing that we're gonna touch on today. Random questions that you may be asked in an internship interview, because they do come up every once in a while and people ask about them. So one of the first random questions you might get are kind of the weird problem-solving questions. And you may hear that some companies like to throw these out, like, how many pennies would fit into this room? I mean, what is that? Okay, so the idea behind these questions is to see how you would think on the spot and how you problem solve. And by no means do they expect you to actually know how many pennies would fit into this room. They just want to see you think on your feet a little bit. And if you'd like to train your brain to be able to think this way, in case you might get one of these random questions, best way to do that is just to Google random interview questions and get some more examples under your belt. Look at what people have been asked in the past and how they recommend approaching them. And another random question you might get asked is to just tell them a fun fact about yourself. Or the way I like to phrase it is, what's your party trick? My party trick is a one-arm push-up. I can do a lot of them. And if you're interested in learning why and how, you can go to theinternhustle.com and learn more about my story. But there's no reason to get stressed out about these questions. They're just trying to feel you out a little bit and get to know your personality. Just remember, keep your answers appropriate. If you stuck around through all 20 of those internship interview questions, nice work. It shows that you really care about acing your interview, and I respect you for it. I did tell you at the beginning of this video that I would have a pro tip for you if you stuck around to the end. So without making you wait any longer, here it is, Glassdoor. Have you heard of it? Or have you used Glassdoor before? Glassdoor is a website that aggregates information about companies, things related to employee reviews, salary data, and interview recaps. And employees and job candidates can leave anonymous reviews about their experience with any given company on Glassdoor.com. So if you're curious what interview questions a company most commonly asks candidates, you can actually look them up on Glassdoor and see if anyone's posted reviews about their interview experience. And in some cases, they may even indicate that they were interviewing to be an intern with this company, which is even more relevant in your case. Now be sure to take these interviews and reviews with a grain of salt, because sometimes people are just salty that they didn't get hired, or maybe they're a disgruntled employee and they're just there to leave a bad review about the company. But if you read everything with a grain of salt, Glassdoor.com is another great resource for you that you can look into as you're preparing for your interview. Plus, if you're a current US student, you can create a free Glassdoor account using a valid student email address. And this student account is going to provide you with 12 months of unlimited access to Glassdoor's content. I'm going to link to the Glassdoor student page in the description below this video if you're interested in checking this out further. That's a wrap! Jazz hands! Good luck with your interviews! If this video gave you some new insights today, please give it a like and share it with a friend or two. Hit that red subscribe button below so that you don't miss out on future videos. in support of your hustle. I'll see you next Monday.